Convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell will probably get a new trial. And this is how we ended up here. During her federal criminal case, one of the jurors in his questionnaire was asked, are you or any of your family members, have they been the victim of sex abuse? And he answered no. Well, it turns out the answer was yes, because he told media outlets there were undecided jurors in the juror deliberation room. And he told them about his own experience as a victim of sex abuse. And because of his experience, he was able to convince the undecided jurors to vote guilty. So not only did this juror reportedly lie about a really important fact in the case that may have had him removed from the jury for cause, it was actually prejudicial to Ghislaine Maxwell. So this is something that Judge Allison Nathan is going to have to rule on. I expect her to overturn the verdict, declare a mistrial, and we're going to have to start the case all over. So who is Ghislaine Maxwell? She's actually British, and that's going to be important because she's going to be connected to Prince Andrew, the son of Queen Elizabeth. Ghislaine moved to the United States when her father, Robert Maxwell, who was a very successful businessman, bought the New York Daily News. And that's where she met Jeffrey Epstein, a very successful financier. And in the early 90s, they developed a romantic relationship. So who is Jeffrey Epstein? He was a very successful financier. So you have Maxwell, who comes from a rich and powerful publishing family, connected with a very wealthy Jeffrey Epstein. And together, they are tapped into some of the most powerful people in business, in law, in the entertainment industry. And they essentially become a power couple in New York. But then things take a turn for the criminal. So Jeffrey Epstein had an interest in young girls, as young as age 14. And Ghislaine helped him get access to these girls. She would recruit them and she would groom them by making it appear to these very young women that this type of sexual activity was normal. So she was instrumental in really recruiting these victims for Epstein. Now, Jeffrey Epstein was very wealthy, and he was alleged to have abused these young women all over the world. He had a townhouse in New York, a mansion in Palm Beach, a ranch in New Mexico, but where a lot of the abuse happened was his island, also referred to as Pedophile Island or St. Jeff's. A lot of these young women were flown to Epstein Island, where a lot of this abuse happened. There are many celebrities and power players who have allegedly gone to this island. Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Bill Gates, astronaut John Glenn, just to name a few. So Epstein Island is really the center of where all of this abuse happened. The feds started getting wind of Jeffrey Epstein, and in 2008, he was actually prosecuted for sex abuse. He was represented by Rudy Giuliani, who has also been accused of participating in sex acts with Jeffrey Epstein. And Rudy Giuliani secured a sweetheart deal. And the participant in the deal on the prosecution side is a guy by the name of Alex Acosta, who was U.S. attorney in Miami. What Acosta gave Epstein is really unprecedented. He gave him a non-prosecution agreement, which said that we, the government, we're not going to prosecute you federally. We're going to give you a state disposition. So the state prosecuted him, but he didn't serve much, if any, time. And he served it in local jail, and he was able to leave and actually go to work. Alex Acosta was later appointed by Donald Trump to be Secretary of the Department of Labor. And because of the public outcry, he had to resign as Secretary of Labor. In 2019, the feds finally arrested Jeffrey Epstein for sex trafficking. He was going to be prosecuted. He likely would have spent the rest of his life in federal prison. But a month after his arrest, he was found dead in his jail cell. He was on suicide watch, but he hung himself. A lot of people think that he was killed before he named names of people who participated in the sex acts with him. Jeffrey Epstein never got the criminal justice he deserved. So the feds turned their attention to his partner, his co-conspirator in sex trafficking, and that was Ghislaine Maxwell. The following year in 2020, they arrested her and they charged her with sex trafficking. She didn't die in prison, and she took her case all the way to trial. A jury deliberated and they came back guilty. After the guilty verdict, 2 of the jurors spoke to the media. One of them talked about his experience as a victim of sex abuse. And because that wasn't disclosed in the juror questionnaire, now the defense is asking for a new trial. A second juror, who remained anonymous, also spoke to the media and told the New York Times things that may have been inconsistent with his or her questionnaire as well. So because of these two jurors, the defense is filing a motion for a new trial, and the judge in the case, Allison Nathan, is going to have to rule. And a lot of legal experts believe that she will have to grant a new trial, and we're going to have to start this whole thing over. What Alex Acosta did when he was U.S. attorney in Miami was shameful. You should never give a sex trafficker any type of non-prosecution agreement. These are the people that should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law by the federal government. Federal judges sometimes go way too quickly during jury selection or voir dire. But in a case like this, involving the rich and famous and sex abuse, you can't just rely on a questionnaire. You need to spend more time inquiring of the jurors, asking them questions in court. The juror who allegedly lied on his questionnaire just said he went through it very quickly. You have to spend the time in jury selection. And that's actually what many state court judges do that federal judges don't. Had we done that, we may not be in the situation we are today. 4 victims testified in Maxwell's criminal trial. 3 of them were under the age of 17, so they were substantive counts. That means they were sex trafficked. One of them was 17, which was the age of consent in some jurisdictions. So she wasn't a victim in the substantive counts, but she testified as a prior bad acts witness. That means she testified to Maxwell and Epstein's MO in recruiting these young girls to participate in these sex rings. Importantly though, the most vocal of all the Epstein victims, Virginia Giuffre, did not testify in Maxwell's criminal case. And the speculation is that she had given some inconsistent statements to law enforcement, so the government didn't want to put her on the stand. But she wants her story to be told. Virginia Giuffre, who was Virginia Roberts at the time of her abuse, she'd sued Epstein, she'd sued Maxwell, and now she's sued Prince Andrew. But importantly, in 2009, she settled her civil lawsuit against Epstein for a mere $500,000. And the settlement agreement in that case, or the release, was very broad. It released anyone who could have potentially been named as a defendant in the case. So now that she sued Prince Andrew, the prince's attorneys are arguing that that release also protected the prince. The judge in the prince's civil case, Judge Kaplan in New York, rejected that argument. So the case against the prince is gonna move forward. Maxwell was convicted by a unanimous jury in her criminal case, and now she's gonna be sentenced. She's 60 years old, so she's gonna probably die in federal prison, unless one of 2 things happen. Her motion for a new trial is granted, which it likely will, but it's just gonna delay the inevitable. The government's gonna retry her, and she's not getting out on bond. But one bombshell has just dropped. One of the victims in the first trial has told the media she does not want to testify in the second case. So the government has a couple options. They could subpoena her, compel her to testify. But these victims have already been through enough. Is the government really going to make her tell her story in a very public way over again? Or are they going to proceed with just 3 victims? Or maybe add Virginia Giuffre to the mix for the second trial? Or Maxwell may see the writing on the wall and may decide to finally cooperate with the government, start naming names, help the government prosecute others who participated in the sex ring with Jeff Epstein. Thanks for watching. I'm Neama Rahmani, president of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Like, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell for more notifications.